Good evening, folks. How are you doing? Paul Anderson here, live for the Howa Cramar. My weekly fiddle workshop. Remains to see how many folk are still going to be watching as lockdown kind of continues but relaxes. So folk getting back to normal much more than usual. But as I've got no gigs and no concerts and there's no face-to-face teaching, I'm just going to continue with these weekly workshops. So if anybody looks in, grand. We'll be playing anyway. So, as much for my own amusement as anything else, I have been playing the music of James Scott Skinner for the last couple of weeks, 2.5 weeks, give or take a few days. And I've been endeavouring to record all these tunes, all these known tunes that I can find. So, at the minute, I have now done 172 up till the day. It's 172 tunes. So that's right through the Fiddle Music of Scotland, the Fiddle Music of Scotland, the Scottish violinist, and I'm now working my way through the Hearn collection, the Miller Hearn collection. So this is one of Skinner's earlier collections, I would say. This is a reproduction. I'll let you see it because I've got an original in the house, but I'm going to let you see the cover. So that's the I'm using back front, obviously. Sorry about that because it's fake Facebook Live, and if you've got a Huawei phone, it just inverts the image. So I'm sorry about that. But let's just stick this back here because I'm going to be using it, and I'm going to be doing a workshop on this handsome beast here. This is one of James Scott Skinner's fiddles. He probably had quite a few. There was one in particular that he was gifted by the I forget his name, I think it was Grant at Easter Elchies and Karen. And that was a top-notch fiddle that he had, and I think that was his pride and joy. But this was certainly a very good fiddle. As you can see, it's got gold mounting on the pegs, and also on the tail pin, and also on the tailpiece, which I think has probably been a later addition, but I'm not sure. Now the inside of this says Carlo Bergonzi, which if it is, it's a very valuable instrument, but I'm pretty sure that it's nay. That said, it's a very, very fine instrument. My pal Gregor Borland and myself had a look at this, and Gregor has seen this type of thing before. And to be honest, it's such a fine instrument that I'm surprised somebody wouldn't want to put their own name to that, but possibly there's more money in putting a famous label on it. But Carlo Bergonzi was a great Italian maker, one of the top 10 makers ever, I believe. But this, regardless of who made it, is a very fine fiddle, and it's a real joy to play. Now this Scott Skinner fiddle is the one that's in the care of the Banchory Heritage Society, and they look after it, and it's on loan to the Banchory Museum, which, because of coronavirus and also that the museum in Banchory is being they're refurbishing it, the fiddle's back in care with the society. So I've got an Aleno it. I had this for Celtic Connections for my recital I did with the famous composers' fiddles, and I used this in as well as the straw fiddle. That's staying with the horn on it for recording with. That was Skinner's one. I used them as well. But this is a different thing entirely. So I've been recording Skinner's music on this fiddle, one of his own fiddles. And this is a fiddle that Skinner swapped with a guy, a man he called Tupney Willie, who sounds slightly dodgy, like some kind of used car salesman, but I've no idea what kind of character he was, but that was what he was known as. And Skinner, who frequently had financial problems, swapped this fiddle for Tupney Willie's fiddle, but there was cash came as well, so he gave away this fine instrument for a lesser instrument, basically. So there you go. But that is the story of this fiddle, and so it's lucky that it's still known. So I'm going to use this tonight. Thought it'd be quite nice to work on some Skinner tunes with one of his own instruments, and that is a bit of an honour to be able to do that, because I ken nobody can just get hold of a Skinner fiddle. So I'm going to work on a few tunes that I've come across in the Miller Hearn collection. Mr. Mickey's, Mr. John Smith's, and a jig, which I'm going to look at last. But I'm going to start with the Strathspey If anybody had the music in front of them, which I posted earlier, we'll go through it fairly slow and steady. The quantity of Skinner stuff, it is amazing how much of it's actually good, even tunes I didn't ken. I thought there was going to be a lot more duff tunes, but actually the biggest bulk of them have been good, but they're not all great tunes. But this was a group of 3 tunes which I pretty much found over the last couple of days. In fact, I played them today and I thought, these are really nice tunes, I'm going to play them. So that's why I've chosen them. They're nice and well kent. I mean, I did Hector Hero last week, but I thought a little bit more obscure, because most folk would probably ken Hector Hero if they're traditional musicians that play Scottish or Irish music. So, Mr. Mickey's, I'm going to play it through steady, certainly not up to dance speed, but no dead slow. Play it through once with the repeat, and in fact there's no repeats, okay. So I'll play it straight through once and then we'll go back and I'll have a look at a few bits. I've got a few up-driven bows here to look at, and also there's a few 4th fingers if you are a fiddle player. 4th fingers are a very useful tool. Or if you're up in Aberdeenshire, that's your cranny, your 4th finger. Okay. Go. Now I think it's a nice tune, very nice tune. Maybe wouldn't say it's as distinctive as something like the Laird of Drumblair or Kerry Kibbick, the Miller of Hearn, Glenlivet as well. Actually, there are probably some of the better Kent Skinner tunes as regards to space, but this I think is definitely one that's Mary's outstanding space, because I've played a lot and a lot of them are quite similar, and I think problem with Skinner stuff is it's not so much that he plagiarises other folk or he particularly writes bad tunes, but I think he's certain little motifs and movements that he likes, and so there tends to be quite a lot of them are very similar, and you do find tunes with a certain era have certain bits coming through. And the older tunes, some of them are quite alike, and then later tunes they've moved on a wee bit, but they're kind of quite like other tunes that he wrote. So it's not they're bad tunes, I think, and I can relate to that because I find that I'm not so much likely to plagiarise other folk if I'm writing music. That I find is the same sort of thing. There's little movements that I like that, and then you've forgotten you've actually put it in another tune some other time. So, but this I think stands out a wee bit. So, Mr. Mickey's, let's go back, and it's got a wee bit at the bottom says Renatin. So I'm not sure far Renatin is. If anybody kens, let me ken. It could be a farm, could be a very small village. I can't think I've ever been there anyway. So we'll take it real slow. I'm going to play it through twice, nice and steady. Then we'll look at a few wee bits and pieces. Okay, after 3. 1, 2, 3. that's a fine tune. But that's just my taste. But I like it anyway. Now, when it comes to the bow, and I've got quite a few up-driven bows added in here. If you are a fiddler and you've noticed them, you can't really go past them since they're quite strongly marked in. But you obviously dinna hate to play them. It's a matter of taste, but certain tunes that really can add lift and drive. Very distinctive feel. Important to play it with drive. There's no point in going. You're kind of making the bow more complicated, but nay providing any of the unique quality that you get for playing an up-driven bow. So it takes a bit of practice, and there's no shortcuts. Like a lot of these things, like the instrument itself. I mean, a lot of folk give up because it is quite a. I mean, every instrument's got its issues, but the fiddle is quite an awkward thing to play. I mean, sticking it under your... That's awkward. There's no getting around that. That's an awkward damn thing to play, and then you've got to keep the fiddle up, and that's why you start seeing fiddles dropping down, because folk get tired, and then kind of fiddle slips into the palm of your hand. And if you start playing like this for any length of time, the muscle memory begins to kick in, and the muscles develop like that. So to straighten it up, to give you more fluency and flexibility and stretch, very difficult to get out of that. I've found only pupils of mine that come to me that have been at other places and they come with that kind of habit, I just can't get them out of it. And it doesn't mean it needs to stop you playing, but it is quite restrictive to play like that. But some great players play like that, find their own way around about it. I mean, I'll be honest, Stefan Grappelli, if you saw him playing, his hand was pretty much like that, but he was able to float it about seamlessly. So I would just say for most folk it's probably helpful to have a reasonable technique. So awkward to play, but then if you're going to add awkward bowing in as well, it has to provide that extra bit of something. If it doesn't, there's no point in doing it. There's no point in making this hard just because you can. As long as it adds something to the feel and the character of the music, that's fine. And that's why you bow things a certain way, like a snap bowing. Tends to be down up for a snap. And the most effective place to play that's the top third of the bow, because that's where you get the snap of the wrist. And also, you get less use of the wrist further up to the heel you get. You just kind of do it. But the thing that I would probably suggest here, when you play snap bowing, you still want to draw out your long notes. So you don't want to clip them, because you can certainly go... Now that's perfectly acceptable. I mean, it's effective enough, but you didn't get any sense of the long notes, which is really part of the style. Okay, so that tends to be why it's better to play it in the top half if you want to do that. You can please yourself, really. But that's why. So I'm really just trying to suggest why you play it a certain way. Let's play it through again once, and then I'll go over the up-driven bow, how I'm playing it. 4 fingers. Keeps it on one string rather than having to cross up for a very short note. It makes the bowing that little bit more difficult. And if you can just use your 4th, and that's really a matter of practice more than anything else, it'll help things flow nicely. So let's go through it again, nice and slow, and I'll repeat it, and we'll pick it up just a wee bit. Okay, 1, 2, 3. have you heard that tune? I have heard it played, but never very often. I couldn't tell you if I heard playing it, and it's certainly not one that I've ever worked on. But when I played it, I thought, that's familiar sounding, but I can't think why or who was playing it. But it's a good tune. I like it, Mr. Mickey. Updriven bow it's a development of snap bowing. I had the snap bow at the start. Snap bow is something that's developed into updriven bow. I think they get a certain feel and drive and lift. It's a dance tune, it's a space, so how you play it should be something that reflects the style of the dancing and encourage dancing and good dancing and enthusiastic dancing. So how you play should kittle up the folk on the dance floor, hopefully. And you hear folk speaking about the likes of Neil Gow or William Marshall, when they played the sort of things you used to hear, some of these old flowery letters about, we had the company of Mr. Gow tonight, and it was almost impossible to want to get up and dance. So that really says a lot about the style they're playing. It really got folk going. So the updriven bow starts with a snap, and I would play that for a start. And if I'm teaching a group, I do the same thing. You start with a snap, down, up. So if you've got that up, you're at the tip. Drive to the heel. Next note. 3, 4. 3, 4. Then the last two. Up, down. It's like a cuckoo, that. Sorry, I'm getting off the point. You have to hear that lift between the second and third up. If I'm teaching a big group, I would go 3, 4. 1, 2. 3, 4. 1, 2. That last up at the heel, the bow's under a lot of tension at that point, and it will bite into the string, and so it's almost a percussiveness. You're looking for that kind of punch, but you've got to hit the lift. Forever you play an updriven bow, note values are exactly the same every time. They're played exactly the same every time, but the notes can obviously vary. So some updriven bows can be harder to play than others, so you need to practice them. But to play with lift and drive, it takes commitment. You have to really go for it, and you should be relaxed. But to get to that sort of stage where you feel relaxed and absolutely know you're going to hit it, it takes confidence, and that only comes through experience. Oh, hell. So that kind of feel, you can feel it actually more than just hear it. You feel that. It's almost like you feel the hackles rising up the back of your neck when you hear something like that. So anyway, Mr. Mickey's, let's move on. We're not going to take so much time with this next tune, the reel, other than just going over it. The bowing, I might play it this way, but I might change it later on. But this certainly would work, and I've tried to put in a few slurs here and there to show some variety. The slurs help you a wee bit of fluency, allow you to draw the bow out a wee bit more. So you could go. So that's 3 different ways you could bow that, all using slurs or nae. So they all have a different feel. So being able to pick and choose these for just colour in the music and a wee bit of musicality and taste, it's good to be able to draw upon all these different elements. So let's have a go. Right, back to the beginning. 2, 3. again. There you go. No, I think that's a splendid tune. Mr. John Smith's. Nothing to do with the real ale for the North England, pint of bitter. No, nothing to do with that. But this particular John Smith come from Arford, which is just over the hill, pretty much about 15 minutes in the car. 15-20 minutes you'll be in Arford. The home of the Aberdeen Angus bull. Nae the one, but the breed was pretty much Alexander McCombie was the founder of that breed. So anyway, I'm on a tangent as usual. So I think that's a nice tune. Again, didn't hear it very often, but it's really, I think it's a nice tune. It caught my ear. There's a lovely passage in the first 4 bars of the second half, which is really, well, I find it really pleasing to the ear, but it makes it a little tricky. There's some of these sharps you have to watch out for. Just progressing up. It's a lovely tune. Again, it does sound like a Skinner tune, which means playing that on his own fiddle is a bit of a treat. I mean, it's a beautiful instrument. I keep coming back to that. Look at the shine on it. I mean, that's the date. Let me think. I kind of mind if I could pick out what the date was, but it was 1753 or something like that. Yeah, or 56. 1756. There you go. So it's been well looked after, that instrument. Tuppenny Willie did a good job on behalf of Mr. Skinner. So yeah. Not too shabby sitting playing this here tonight. So let's just go through it again. I've also added in a few 4th fingers for only the fiddlers looking. I mean, if you play the accordion or a banjo, it's making no difference at all how I finger my way around these tunes, but it helps the bowing. I mean, that's one of the things with the fiddle. The bow is one of the real awkward things that folks struggle with, and we are the will in the world. Doesn't matter how good your left hand work. I kind of inverted and it looks like I'm playing right-handed, but if your left hand work is really good, if your bowing is really untidy and scrappy, it's never going to sound great. So things like using the 4th finger to help make the bowing a little easier, it's something, I think it's just common sense to me, but unfortunately a lot of folk find their 4th fingers a little weaker and inclined to give them a bit of a sidestep. It's the last thing you should do. You should work on your 4ths and bring them up to a level that means you're confident to play them. So bits like this right at the beginning. So it means I'm keeping it on the D string and the A. That 2 strings, if you're not a fiddler, are together. If I didn't use my 4th finger, got to go for the D to the E, back to A. So 3 quavers in quick succession on 3 different strings. So that is making it difficult for anybody, I would say. And you can do it, don't get me wrong. If you like playing tunes and not using your 4th finger, do it that way. But for using your 4th, you keep it in 2 strings, and I think it makes it tidier. For me, that's a sensible option, and it comes in later on again. same thing. To me that makes it a lot easier, keeps it on the one string. Can that bar you're playing in 3 strings again. Fairly typical Skinner. You got the progressions going upwards in the first 4 bars of the second half, and then they descend in the second 4. It's like a call and answer. It's almost like an echo. So so that's the reason for the 4th fingers, but well worth practicing your 4ths because they're a handy tool in your armoury of technological weapons that you've got at your disposal when you're executing these fine Scottish fiddle tunes. So no burls in this tune. It's in G. The key's quite pleasing as well, but you've got a couple of sharps to look out for, so be aware. Okay. So if you've got the music, the slurs, I mean, I could play that. I'm going to play it through fairly quickly without any slurs as best I can. I tend to do it naturally without too much thought, so I'll have to concentrate. So you'll get this kind of, I wouldn't say monotonous, but it's a wee bit like Saw and Sticks. Now, Mr. Skinner himself, James Scott Skinner, on whose instrument I'm playing, I definitely feel he used to play a lot of his reels completely way up and doing bowing. So if I contrast it how I might play it with the slurs, to me, I mean, it's just my matter of taste. It's just my taste, but I think it helps. It gives a reel a wee bit more flow, and otherwise it would just be up and down. So. So there you go. Is it better? It's, well, how long's a bit of string? It's not really. Some folk might like it, some folk might not, but anyway, that's how I'm playing it. So let's go back and play it through steady again if you're playing along with me. I've really no idea if anybody sits and plays with me at these things, but we get a handful of folk looking in. So if you've got your fiddle handy, let's have a go steady the first time, and then we'll pick it up and play it through the second time, and then we'll move on to this jig. Right, Mr. John Smith's. So, I hope you like it, because I like it. So you're going to have to be putting up with it. Now, I'm going to move on. If I can move this book over without tipping the phone, I'll give you a look again. For anybody who doesn't know what we're playing, if you've come in late, I'm using James Scott Skinner's The Miller of Hearn collection. And that is the book by James Scott Skinner. Now, I'm very sorry, it's inverted back front. I've got a Huawei phone, and that's what happens. So, and you can't do anything about it. So I kind of unravel that. But this is a reprint of the original Miller Ahern collection that was published by Aberdeen City Council in 2000. And I kind of, they'll be doing things like that in the future, but I felt it was a very worthwhile thing for them to do. So this is a collection that was a bit like hen's teeth. You just didn't find them. These are all collections, and I have found that if I am looking at antiquarian bookshops, quite often they'll have music selections, and I'll be looking for all fiddle collections. And just about every time they say, oh, aye, well, we do get them, but they just disappear out the door really quick. There's a high demand. Quite often you can get pipe music, but the fiddle collections, the alt collections, are very much sought after. So it was a great thing to be able to get this alt collection. A lot of tunes in it that I didn't really ken. So there we go, the Miller Ahern collection. I've actually got an original by in the house, but I tend to keep that in sitting, try to look after it, keep it out the daylight and didn't touch it. So I've got a good collection of music, but am I looking for some of these old collections, because they are stuff that's jewels in Scottish culture that need to be looked after. So now, going to move on. Now, while I've been recording all these Skinner tunes, I previously thought that the only Skinner jig I knew that he'd written was a tune called The Buck of the Cabrach. Now, the Cabrach, it's in Bampshire. If you go up to Riney for here, it takes you about 25 minutes to get to Riney, half an hour. The Cabrach Road is just between Riney and Lumsden, and it's wild, wild country. It's got a bleakness, but there's a beauty to how bleak it is. And it's very much underpopulated now. There's no many folk there. A huge amount of folk killed up there during the First World War. A lot of whiskey stilling, illicit whiskey stilling used to go on up there. And that's for the Glenfiddich. And is it come out of there? I think it is, actually. Well, anyway, that was the only jig that I thought Skinner had written, but I've actually come across about 5 now. Now I'm up to tune number 172 out of nearly 700 tunes by Skinner, and I've come across 5, and this is one of the ones I came across here this morning. It's called Miss Isabel Ewan, and she apparently came from Banchory, so this is very much Skinner's home turf. So yep, keep your triplets nice and lively, plenty of lift. I'll come to how you play the triplets. I mean, folk, if you're a fiddle player or a traditional musician, you've a fair idea, I'm pretty sure, but I'll go through it anyway. Miss Isabel Ewan, keeping the tempo steady, but nae quite what I would describe as slow. Up, that was pretty much at dance speed. I didn't really slow it down too much. I got too carried away with myself. I'm sorry. So let's go through it nice and slow. The one thing I would say about the playing the triplets and jigs, and it's one of your key musical fingerprints you find in jigs. Dot the first note, semi-quaver the middle note. They're notated with 3 equal notes in your triplets. So they're written like this. But when I was learning the fiddle, one of the old players, and I think it's fairly common across Scotland generally, up there are slight variations, but it tends to be rather than idea. I'm mine, the very first Glenfiddich Fiddle Championship, which I never competed in actually, but I mind watching it. And I forget if I was on it. Aidan O'Rourke was one of the competitors, and there was Alec Bain. And the winner was Maureen Turnbull, who used to beat me on a regular basis at fiddle competitions. But in the course of the programme that featured all these players at the final, they had them chatting. But there was one, I think it was Doug Stewart, who was the conductor of the Highland Strathspey Reel Society, and he was talking about how the jigs are played in the Highlands. And so this is the kind of Highland way. And it would be absolutely right, but it was pretty much how we played them in the northeast of Scotland as well. So it really, I wouldn't say it pertains to any particular area. It seems to be a kind of generic way of playing jigs, and yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. But that's how we grew up playing them. Only the Hull players played them that way. I certainly never really worked on jigs with Angus Shaw from Banchory, nor Dougie Lawrence, my other Scottish fiddle tutor, my main Scottish fiddle tutor. Jigs was just nascent when we looked at it. So how I play them, it tends to be informed by how I played them with other folk that were around about me, starting with the Banchory Strathspey Reel Society. So I think that's a nice way to learn, kind of very organic, picking it up without realising that you're picking it up. So let's go back to the beginning, nice and slow, nice and steady. I'm not going to vouch for the bass parts on these tunes, but I have a feeling that Skinner had a fair hand in the settings, but the taste for accompaniment has probably changed quite a lot, I would suggest. But there might be a good guide if you play a bass instrument. They might be quite handy, but I've never really worked for any of these bits of music with the bass hand, so it'd be interesting to hear what folk think of them. So let's go for the top then. Twice through. Okay. 2, 3. So not a tune I've heard very often, although I have to say there's a bit of that. It is a bit of a feel of something else, and I kind of put my finger on it. So if anybody can think of it, it might even be an Irish tune. Some of you watching might ken what I'm speaking about. I kind of name it, but so the first half of that sounds quite like this, but I think that Irish tune, it might be an O'Carolan tune, Oh, yeah, my memory is letting me down. I'm not so good in Irish tunes. Is it the March of the King of Leitrim or something like that? Does that sound vaguely right? Well, anyway, it's got a bit of a feel of that. Maybe that's why I thought it sounded pretty good. But it's a rarity for a Skinner tune. Again, I've got four fingers in here for exactly the same reason as the previous tunes, that it makes the bowing easier. It means you're playing on two strings rather than have to go across for a third and then back. You're having to jump right across the A string very quickly. Just for the want of using a four finger, I mean, if you feel you lack confidence on four fingers, the only thing for it is just practice them, and it'll certainly help if you can keep a straight line between your knuckle and your elbows. It gives you a lot more stretch. If I can turn around just to let you see, if you go like this, what happens is that the fingers get pulled back, but that allows more movement in these tendons up and down the back of your arm and the muscles, so they get a bit better freedom. If you can see what happens to the tendons at work, if you see how it's working right. So what you do, if you put a kink in it like that, it's like stretching stuff out of the back of a pulley, and it doesn't allow the greatest amount of freedom. Obviously, I mean, folk can still play, that's no the issue here, but if you've got a problem with stretching up for your fourth, get your hand up, it gives you more reach. If I go like that, I can manage about there. I've got a huge reach by comparison. So using the fourth is a great tool to have at your disposal. So I think that's me pretty much done tonight. Rattled through a few tunes. I hope you've liked the tunes. They're nice and familiar. I kind of see very much floating up past me. I can see if there's folk watching, and I kind of answer questions because I kind of play and speak and reply at the same time. But if anybody's put any questions up onto the post, I will try and answer them. Most of the time it's not so much questions as hello, I enjoyed it, and I don't want to be saying the hinna. That's probably going to be coming one of these days, I would imagine. But if you found it useful or interesting, thank you very much. I'm delighted. I just enjoy doing these sort of things. So thanks very much. If you've enjoyed it and you want to bung someone in the tip jar, that's grand. It's www.paypal.me/Paul Anderson Shona Dawn. We will be back here on Friday for Live for the Lounge, which is good fun. It's highlight of my week, as I say, because it is. And really enjoy that. So we'll have a few tunes worked up for that. I might actually play some of these tunes because I quite like them and I'm enjoying playing them, but we've got a few other things. We've got a brand new tune I wrote last weekend called To the Mountain Hare, which was inspired by, I was up in the Cairngorms at the weekend and climbed Carnosta, which is a Munro. And in the upper slopes, I was watching the mountain hares. There was grouse fleeing past, but there was mountain hares just going about, and they knew I wasn't going to catch them should I decide to, but they were kind of keeping an eye on me. But it was just really pleasing to see them just relaxed on the hillside. So I a bit of music came to my head while I was there. So anyway, I'm rambling. So anyway, thanks for looking in, folks. I'll be back next Wednesday with something, whether it's Scott Skinner, because I've done 172 and I've got nearly 700 a day, so I've got quite a lot. I've got a few weeks of this to go, that's for sure. But I've got most of the really tough ones out the road, I will say that, because there was some weeks I was taking me ages to get through. I mean, the President, La Messe and Back to the Hills are demanding at the best of times, so that gave me a bit of a headache, but we're rattling through them a bit now. So anyway, good night, folks. Have a good day, take care, and if you're looking on Friday, we'll see you there. Say hello, and yeah, we'll obviously have Shona with us to sing a few songs, and you never can, we might have a special guest appearance for one of the boys playing something on their fiddles, who knows. And of course, what's in the box? What's in the box? Who knows? Tune in on Friday to find out. See you later, folks.